Vanna White and Pat Sajak are like the Ken and Barbie of American TV. While this description in some ways pokes fun at the almost too perfect faces of these two eminent hosts, in another way it fits. They're both enduring, and it's tough to think of a single bad thing to say about them. They have been there through the years to give a sense of rhythm and ritual to an oftentimes confusing and scary world. But recent rumors suggest this might be coming to an end, that the lovely and vivacious Vanna White might be leaving Wheel of Fortune forever. So today we're getting to the bottom of these rumors, going deep into Vanna's past, both on and off Wheel of Fortune, as we find out the twisted history of her tenure on the show that may be darker than you expect. So what dark secrets lie hidden on the Wheel of Fortune? And is the show really a ticking time bomb? Before we spin the wheel, remember to give this video a thumbs up to show support, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Now, can I buy a vowel as we go find out?
What happened?
Vanna's early years. Vanna White has been on Wheel of Fortune for so long, it's easy to forget she was once young and not famous. Born in the Grand Strand region of South Carolina, Vanna was destined for greatness. But her relationship with this classic show is more complicated than you may expect. In fact, from the very beginning, Vanna's time on the show has been intermixed with horrible tragedy. When Vanna auditioned for the show, she was terrified. Her only TV experience was a bit part on The Price is Right. She'd never been the center of attention on a production, but that was all about to change. Her first role on Wheel of Fortune sounds laughable now. She was picked as one of 3 substitute guest hosts. Of course, it wasn't long until she had herself a permanent job on the show, and she was the perfect gal to play the part. Poised, graceful, and gorgeous. It wasn't long until Vanna White was one of America's most well-known and hottest commodities. Off camera, things were also looking up for her. When she met actor John Gibson, it was love at first sight. John had begun his career as a Playgirl model, but had begun to develop a serious career for himself as an actor. He was in one of the Warriors gangs, but you may better remember him from The Young and the Restless. Like Vanna, John understood what it was like to be known in large part for your physical attractiveness. Heck, he was a Chippendales dancer before that. So the two could relate to flocks of people wanting to get photos with the hot star. The pair got closer and were engaged to be married, but then disaster struck. John Gibson was killed in a tragic plane wreck. Vanna still remembers the date when she heard the terrible news. May 17, 1986. Vanna White was devastated, but then something remarkable happened. When fans of Wheel of Fortune heard about the terrible accident, they sent troves of letters, postcards, and messages of love to Vanna, a massive outpouring of support in an extremely difficult time. And she credits the support as what helped her get through that time in her life. So in this way, Wheel of Fortune represents both the beginning and end of a beautiful romance. But this wasn't the first time that the show would represent bittersweet emotions for Vanna. In fact, it would later become even more closely related to the immense hope and drastic sorrow that Vanna would experience. More trouble. Years after losing John, Vanna would get another chance at love. She was set up by a mutual friend with George Santo Pietro, who was a mysterious entrepreneur. And in 1991, the pair wedded. Not long after, Vanna got some stunning news. She was pregnant. After her first tragic love, in which the apple of her eye was gone in an instant, here was a real solid relationship, marked by an indisputable testament to its stability, a baby. Vanna was so excited, she wanted to share her news with the same people who supported her through her darkest hours. So she decided to broadcast her pregnancy with the entire world. On Wheel of Fortune, contestants were confronted with a puzzle that, when solved, read, Vanna's pregnant. White had finally found both professional success and personal fulfillment, and now the two came together in a very heartfelt way. But unfortunately, this happiness couldn't last forever. And not a week after, Vanna got some truly horrible news that she had miscarried. Not only did she suffer yet another personal tragedy, but the show itself played a painful role in that saga. Everything she dreamed of had once again vanished in front of her eyes. And on top of that, while she was struggling through so much turmoil, Vanna had to still show up to work every day and put on a happy face, clapping for contestants just like everything was perfect. And now, a job that had once allowed her to share her good cheer had become a sort of dark performance act. But Vanna was not alone in her darkest hour. She had a steady stream of friends and family to turn to, as well as her husband. She also turned to God in this dark hour. And this terrible time in her life strengthened her relationship with the church. Her marriage would survive another decade before her and George would amicably split. Now, years have passed since that dark time, and it seems like Vanna has recovered. She's been in a healthy relationship since 2012 and spends much of her time off camera with her passions, philanthropy and knitting. Man, I wish I could have a hobby like philanthropy. And along the way, she has racked up plenty of awards, most notably a Guinness World Record for most frequent clapper, with an estimated 3,480,864 times as of 2013. Dropping bombs! Both Vanna and Pat dropped bombs regarding the future of the show. Pat said he wouldn't want the show to overstay its welcome, that he wants to leave before people watch it and say, "Oh man, what's happened to him?" Sajak was intentionally vague about when the actual end of the series would be though, and Vanna shared some big news of her own. If she or Pat were to leave the show, it was very possible that Wheel of Fortune, one of this nation's most dependable institutions, would also come to an end. She said she would not do the show without Pat, and vice versa. When the show was new, back when Vanna was just a substitute, sure, they could have found new hosts. But times have changed, and Vanna and Pat are Wheel of Fortune. Part of this news speaks to the close bond between Vanna and Pat. They've hosted the show together for 40 years and have developed a relationship like brother and sister. In a way, it makes sense for Vanna. The show itself has almost been like members of her family. It's been around for her highest peaks and lowest lows. So like it or not, all good things must come to a close. Crunching the numbers. Okay, so all this is to say, neither host has much of a chance for sticking around for too long. And if one goes, they both go. So what are we supposed to do? Well, you can come out from under your bunker because it turns out we do know more about the future of Wheel of Fortune. While Pat refused to give an exact date for the demise of Wheel of Fortune, he gave us a hint. It's unlikely that the show would be on in 10 years, but we can actually go a bit deeper because the numbers don't lie. Both he and Vanna White have their contracts extended to 2024. So while that's still a pretty wide range, it's better than nothing, because at the end of the day, just like Wheel of Fortune, life is nothing but a big guessing game. So it's a good thing we got gals like Vanna White to guide us through it. Even if Wheel of Fortune ends, and of course it will, it's not the end for people who love dependable puzzle games. There have been spin-offs before. There was the ill-fated Wheel of Fortune featuring child contestants and the off-putting CGI host. Then there's Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, following in the footsteps of Celebrity Jeopardy.
You've managed to cast away quite a number of points.
And that's not even counting the dozens of international spin-offs. But if Jeopardy is the model, then we can learn a valuable lesson. Things are just not the same without the original hosts. But hey, even if it ends, there will always be reruns, as this show has accompanied this country through decades of highs and lows, good times and bad. So even if it doesn't follow us into the future, it will still be there to remind us of a world that once was. Alright, enough of me, now we want to hear from you. Could Wheel of Fortune continue without Vanna White? Could it continue without Pat Sajak? And where does Wheel of Fortune stack up on the greatest game shows of all time? Give me your top 3 game shows of all time. Before you head out of here, hit that thumbs up icon if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, and come back often so we can keep telling you
What happened?